Awesome. So today, okay, so I'm kind of stoked about this. We are with Evan Campbell. And Evan, let's see. Right now, you are the executive chef of the stables.
Yes.
And now we'll get into all the other things you're doing, but most recently, you're on probably the last 4 years, maybe 3 years. You've been the executive chef.
Almost. It'll be 4 years this summer.
Okay, and it was Zeus Gallery Cafe before it was the stables.
From 1991 until 2015, 16, I think.
And they did, when you took it over, they did quite a bit of, I mean, it was just a big overhaul. Would you say that that's what occurred?
Yeah, I mean, when we, Steve Gooch and myself, took control of the restaurant, we took over the rights to Zeus Gallery. So we kind of had the option to continue their food program, but we decided to go a different direction. So we did, I wouldn't say like a full construction, but we did an overhaul of the floors and the woodwork and the bar. I had never dined at Zeus because that was prior to me moving here, but it was checkered tables and carpeted floors. So we kind of just opened up the space and created something new.
Yeah, those tables in Zeus looked like bathroom floors. Do you?
Yeah.
I mean, that's horrible.
I love some kitsch. I'm here for it, but you know, it was time for a change.
So strange.
Oh, I can't hear you now. There you are. Whoop.
Roby,
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
There you are. Yeah.
Go all the way back. We missed all that.
Really? All of it?
All of it. You were very like
you looked in
out of movement. You looked great. I think when you moved, you knocked your microphone out. Maybe I don't know.
I don't. Who even knows what? Who even knows?
We were talking about the bathroom tables at Zeus Gallery.
I know, which we're not going to talk about those because I could say other things that I probably shouldn't say, like weird chalkboard menus. But I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say, what did you do before you moved to Richmond? Like, where were you? Tell us about your life.
So prior to being in Richmond, I was in Boston, Massachusetts for quite some time. I actually kickstarted my career in Boston. I've worked in restaurants forever, but I did my technical training at Cordon Bleu in Boston and worked at a bunch of places. And some dum-dum who is, hindsight, not a dum-dum, but he trusted a 25-year-old opening a restaurant. So I was able to open a restaurant very young and inexperienced, and it did really well. So I opened 2 restaurants up there, and I worked at a couple of places and did consulting and all that prior to moving down here.
Your Boston accent really comes through over Zoom, let me tell you.
Well, it's funny. So I'm from Virginia, born and raised up in Woodbridge. So the entire time I was in Boston, everyone's like, oh, it's the chef from the South. And since being back here, it's, oh, the chef from Boston. I have no culture.
That's not true. I actually really love your kind of mishmash. When we had you, Evan, poor guy, I used to do the stage at Bon Appetit, and we put chefs against each other in this like weird, what do you call it, a chopped competition? Like, what did we do to you guys?
Top style for sure.
And I texted him and was like, not only are you going to have to cook, but you're also going to have to talk. And he was like, oh gosh, everybody thinks I sound so Northern. They loved him. It was great. It was really, really great. So from the Cordon Bleu to a couple of restaurants when you were young, what did you learn as a young chef? Was it hard?
Yeah, I mean, kitchens are difficult, and I think that you can work as hard as you possibly can in certain areas. It's a weird career field because you're expected to have longevity in any career and any job that you're at. People hate seeing when you jump around, but also, you know, you have to continue learning and from different people, otherwise like your styles and techniques stay stale. So it's almost like people want to hire you, you know, to learn new things, but they also want to try to hold on to you. So I didn't do a ton of jumping around, but whenever I worked anywhere, I would always stage 1 or 2 days a week with chefs around town just to keep learning. And I still to this day take opportunities whenever I can to work with other chefs because, you always learn fun new things.
Can we get rid of the stage for people that don't know? It's essentially chefs have to go work with other chefs and they don't get paid.
Correct.
So
And I'll
it's
tell you what, funny story too. There is, I won't mention names because it is one of the top rated Michelin star restaurants in Boston. And I staged there and it was awesome. I mean, it was a great experience. And afterwards, generally they'll say like, oh, we love what you do. We'd love to offer you a job, or we don't have anything right now, But what they said to me was, you're great, you've got a good attitude, but because you're inexperienced, we would need you to stage for at least 16 weeks. And living in Boston, you can't work for no money. It's just not feasible in any city, but in particular in Boston. So I had to turn that down, unfortunately.
so they're like, hey, we're not going to pay you. We're going to get a culinary graduate and you need to be here for 4 months.
Yeah. And it's funny because the day I staged, the chef is known for being hot-headed, and they had a particularly busy night, and I was just I helped them with prep, and they let you do picking herbs and stuff that you can't really mess up, when they don't know your skill level. But they got so weeded that they just threw me on garde manger, and I hadn't seen any of these dishes more than once or twice maybe. And I sent out a tartare with a quail egg that apparently had a little bit of white on it. And the chef came back, threw the plate, screamed, "Who did this? Da da da." And I raised my hand, and he's screaming at me, and I'm thinking, I don't even work here.
You're like, what do you need me to do? By the way, if you're not familiar with that, it's all cold dishes, right? That side of the okay.
It's, cabinet chef is like the translation, really. So it's anything that kind of comes out cold.
I do have a question about Boston. Can you compare and contrast the Boston diner to the Richmond diner for us?
Yes, I prefer the Richmond restaurant scene over Boston.
You have to say that. You're here now.
I don't. There's a transience in any big city that you work in where you might have a handful of regulars that you see a few times a month or even a few times a year, but you're turning out food for different people every single day. I mean, my restaurant, the Trophy Room, which unfortunately just closed recently in the midst of this mess, we were attached to a boutique hotel, and being in downtown in the south end of Boston, like you have the opportunity to wow somebody, but you don't have the kind of return where you get to continue to see familiar faces and turn out product to kind of keep people interested. So it's fun for me. It feels more familial in Richmond because you get to have folks that love your food or love your space and continue coming back, while also having new diners and people traveling through, but not to the degree that obviously in a big city like Boston is would be the case. So.
Do you think your location of the stables is conducive to having a lot of regulars? Like, I feel like where Absolutely. It is. You do, yes?
Yeah, when I moved here, I was intimidated when Steve asked if I was interested in opening a restaurant. Looking at the space, being from a city, I'm like, this is in the middle of a neighborhood. Like there's very little foot traffic. And to this day, it's funny, like being 3.5 years in and having like solid reviews across all the sites. Like it's a running joke amongst the staff when people are like, oh, it's a hidden gem in Richmond. And I'm like, can I just be a gem now? But we do. I mean, when we opened the stables, the idea was that because we're in the heart of the museum district, we wanted to grow organically. We didn't do much in the way of advertising through any kind of major media outlets, because we knew that in any direction, we've got 8 blocks that way, 12 blocks that way, 4 blocks that way. And if we could just get the word out in the neighborhood and we produced good product, the word would kind of get out on its own. And we're lucky to have folks who, I mean, continue to come back that have been with us since day one, which is really nice to see. And it's truly heartwarming for me.
Why did you, go ahead. Sorry, Scott.
I was going to ask, what are you serving these days that is bringing people back day after day?
There's 2 dishes that I'm pretty sure if I took them off my menu, I would be beheaded. I do 4 to 5 menus a year seasonally, but my lamb lollipops fly out of here. I mean, I got a call this morning of somebody who wants to pick up 30 of them for a party tomorrow, and out of a small place. I mean, that's quite a bit. I have a duck breast that's really, really popular. We serve it with sweet potato puree that's not classic like cinnamon and molasses or maple. We do it with cumin and coriander, so it's got a really interesting flavor profile. And Figgy Piggy Brussels sprouts, which are roasted Brussels sprouts with bacon and fresh fig. That one, I mean, I think that last night I'd say 3/4 of my diners went with the duck. It's a relatively—
How many lamb chops do you go through in an evening? 10 billion?
10 billion, to the T, 10 billion. I buy about 5 to 8 cases of lamb lollipops a week. And I believe they're 10-pound cases. So we turn out the lamb lollipops.
They're so good. I can do it.
And I can only take partial credit. The marinade recipe is my mother's. She used to put it on pork chops when we were little. And everything in-house is made from scratch, except for our baguettes, because I don't have convection in my ovens, which will be changing very soon. It's a combination of prepared sauces. I mean, I buy like Worcestershire and ketchup and like a couple of other things that you wouldn't expect like a higher end restaurant to have, just for that marinade, because she threw it together and it was always so good. So it's a little bit of an homage to Mother, who also lives here in Richmond.
Does she?
Yes, in a pinch, she's actually hosted here. Like if she's run the floor for me. If I have somebody call out, she's a huge supporter of the staples.
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah, exactly.
And she knows exactly what's in the lamb lollipops, which, I mean, the last time we were there, we had 2 orders. We ordered one, thought that was going to be enough, and it was not. It was absolutely not enough.
That raises a point I wanted to ask you about. You mentioned you learned how to cook in Boston, but where did you really learn how to cook? Like,
it was my mother for sure. She's the oldest of 7, so she did most of the cooking for her family growing up. And like as kids, it was a treat for us to have like chicken fingers or something. Like she cooked every night, and she wasn't a recipe cook. She just threw stuff together, and I think that's really where it all got started. And then I started cooking in restaurants when I was about 13, so I just continued building on that throughout. Not legally, but yeah.
Me too. I grew up in one, and believe me, we were child labor, and that is the way it goes.
Well, I've had a beard since middle school, so nobody really asked questions.
So have I. I have to. Absolutely. We can make that happen. If you can see me, there we go. It's a very nice beard. See, I can work with it.
You're a very handsome woman, Robbie.
Thank you. That's what I've always wanted to hear. Let's talk about, is it restaurants the only job you've had?
No, I actually, I did my undergraduate at the College of William and Mary, where I studied linguistics and anthropology. And I worked peripherally in the corporate world in my field for about a year out of college. And I loved studying it. I just didn't like doing it. I came to the realization that like I need to have a job that every day looks a little bit different, and kitchens always provided that for me. And I think the expectation when you're growing up is you go to college and then you get a quote big boy job. And that always drove me nuts working in restaurants when they're like, well, what do you want to do afterwards? And sometimes you just want to do that. So I returned to it. While I was working corporate, I actually worked at a restaurant on weekends just for some fun money. And the restaurant I worked at was this hop and gay bar in Boston. It's one of the oldest gay bars up there. It was called Fritz Lounge. I cooked brunches there, and it was like 115 seats, and there was one guy in the kitchen. So you learn really quickly how to turn out food. And honestly, that was probably the best job I've had in terms of learning quick execution of things and how to kind of mise and prep stuff so that you can do a great deal of volume in a short period of time. And that side hustle while I was working corporate ended up being the restaurant that we did a full construction overhaul on and opened up a new space. So the first restaurant I worked at under the table in Boston ended up being my baby, after a few years. So it was very exciting.
Yeah, can you do that to one of our gay bars here? Because man, they could use an overhaul. Any of them. You could have any of them and redo it.
It's on my list. It's on my list.
Please. Speaking of overhauling restaurants, so we've got the Stables. We've been there 3.5, and now you guys you just redid the Franklin Inn, or overhauled the menu, I guess.
Yeah, so I actually, that was one of my hangouts since I moved here. I lived in the museum district when I first moved here, and that was the spot that I went for a beer at the end of the night, and that's where I met Steve. And he had taken over, I guess about 6 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago. And when I moved here, we started talking, and I did a little bit of consulting work for him when he first took over, because he was new to restaurants. But I was never affiliated with the Franklin Inn, aside from helping them out in a pinch with product and all that. But when the pandemic hit, because it's mostly bar, like a lot of places in Richmond, they didn't have the takeout and delivery structure, and the menu wasn't really conducive to dine in and takeout. So I basically sat Steve down. I said, look, I think it's time for me to take part in this other restaurant that's part of the group. So I offered my services and kind of overhauling, not only just the menu, but we brought in some great new staff. I mean, amazing talent over there now. And it took me about 3 months to gut that place in terms of getting it cleaned and up to what I consider to be a safe and effective restaurant. So now it's second on the list. Yeah.
Walk us through these last few months as the virus has taken hold and totally changed the way you guys do everything you do every single day of your life.
Yeah, and I know a lot of chefs have talked about this word that's becoming a bad taste in everyone's mouth, but it's been a pivot. I mean, the stables, we have not stopped. I mean, the minute that everything shut down, I created a new menu for strictly takeout. That was budget friendly, because I knew everybody was sort of afraid about what was going to happen with their own jobs and everything else going on in town. And once that settled for a bit, and we were losing money at quite a fast rate, I pivoted again, and I created a menu that was more sort of stylistically what we've always done here at the stables, but what could be put in plastic containers and sent out without majorly impacting the food. So it's been a lot. We've tried to do as many private events that are sort of takeout delivery style to kind of keep up. It's a lot of work to maintain a restaurant normally. So having to do that in unprecedented times has been certainly a challenge, to say the least. But
well, so is it a money thing that's been the hardest? Is it like a safety thing that's been the hardest? I know it's all hard, but like, what would you say for the folks that take it all for granted? Like, what's like been the most difficult part of this?
I think that one of the things that I sort of pride myself on in terms of like the restaurant atmosphere here at the stables is like most of my staff is original staff, or they've been here for ages. So there's a sense of like familiarity and sort of good cheer when you come to dine with us at the stables. And I think the hardest part is like with everything going on, to be able to continue to produce great product while also policing people in all of these new restrictions. And to have people rolling their eyes when you ask them to put masks on, or to hit the sanitizer station before they come in, it's sort of frustrating, because you're taking on a whole nother job of having to police grown-ups when you're just doing your best to stay open and stay positive. So I think the whole thing is just kind of taking it all in, because a lot of folks will come in with less joy, and a lot of restaurants that I've dined at, like you can tell that the staff who have been cooking for 12 hours in a mask are not in the greatest of moods, and you have to sometimes let that go. So it's difficult to, I guess, maintain all of that within the business, and also try to control what people who come into the business as well. So,
And that leads me to my next question. Earlier this year, Roby and I talked about who we want to interview in 2021, and the theme was positivity. We wanted to interview somebody who was going to be super positive. So we put a questionnaire out on social media, and your name appeared more than once as a potential guest. So what is your secret? How do you stay positive? Where are you pulling that from?
I just woke up like this.
Wow.
No, life's too short to not approach every day, at least with some semblance of positivity. And I tell every person that I hire in any place that I work at, that we all have to be here every day. And for a lot of us, we spend more time in the restaurant than we do in our own homes. So let's make it like a fun place to be, and a place you look forward to going to, as opposed to, I've never been like a leave your problems at the door kind of guy, because certainly you have problems, but if you understand that your workplace, especially in this industry, is for a lot of folks kind of like more home, especially now when we can't see anybody else, we only get to see each other. It's best to keep it positive. And I mentioned the chef that threw the plate and freaked out. I think that one thing that I learned working in militant kitchens like that is you can learn a lot about what kind of chef you don't want to be, just sometimes more so than picking up techniques and stuff. And I said to myself, I'm never going to scream at somebody like that, because I'm thinking, I don't want to go back to this. This is, I mean, people make mistakes and you do your best to fix them. Now, if you make too many mistakes, I'm not going to throw a plate at you, but I'm certainly not going to smile and pat your back. So
constructive criticism.
Exactly.
So how are you taking care of your mental health? I know that's a big thing, obviously, before the pandemic and now with that. So are there best practices to keep you positive? Are you a crazy yoga / run with someone type of person? Do you drink a lot of Fernet Branca, which I see is on your shirt, which, by the way, I think that stuff tastes like recycled ass. I just want you to know that.
I always say when people ask what it tastes like, it's like either Coca-Cola with no sugar in it at all, or shoe polish and overbrewed tea. I love it.
Oh, no.
I do love me a Fernet every now and again. I'm very outdoorsy. I've got a little 3.5-year-old pupper. We go hiking around the river pretty often. I've never been a big fitness nut, but for the last year or so, I've been going to a fantastic personal training gym that's down the street from the restaurant, Tequila and Deadlifts. You should check it out. So I go
Tequila?
Tequila and Deadlifts. No, it's so neat. If people don't know about this, I'm going to plug for Kareth, who's also a dear friend. It is an largely industry-focused gym. So a lot of the folks that are trainers there also work in the restaurant business. So, for a lot of us that are cutting and doing things, where our backs get offset and we have leg and feet pain and all that, a lot of the trainings are focused towards building things that help with restaurant weakness, which has been great for me. I mean, I'm almost 6'4", so I naturally have back problems, and working in kitchens certainly exacerbates that. But I've been working out there for about a year now, and it's all masked workouts, and there's never more than probably 3 or 4 people in the gym at a time. But it's a nice escape just to spend like an hour of your day focusing on yourself, regardless of what that is, whether it's reading a book, drinking too much Fernet Branca, or working out. I haven't found a good class since the pandemic hit. So once things open up again, we'll have to hit a class early.
Oh, you know that I am a yoga, as much as seriously, if I could do it all day long right now, I would do yoga. I mean, I'd be exhausted, but yeah. I would do it all day long. So we've got upcoming things, Scott. Like, we're not done with the amount of restaurants that this poor individual is working with, or a very positive individual. And you have something super cool. I mean, it's kind of breaking news, really, with respect to this. You guys are, I mean, it's near me, so I can walk. So that's amazing. But the market, what is it going to be called?
Yeah, so it's going to be the Stables Market at Libby Mill. And I'm excited about it. This is Steve's baby for the most part. He came to me and said, hey, look, like everybody, I mean, even restaurants you've seen through the pandemic have switched their program almost entirely to market style takeout and delivery. And neither the Franklin Inn or the Stables is really conducive to that. Storage is minimal, and they're all relatively small spaces. So Steve said, how would you feel about doing something market style? And we went back and forth about kind of what the setup would be. And the idea that we kind of settled on is like bringing Richmond, like true, like heart of Richmond food to Libby Mill. And hopefully, if it does well, to other locations as well. The market is in a fabulous space, corner unit at Libby Mill overlooking that nice little lake there. We have an on-off license, so we'll be able to serve beer and wine. So you can sit down out in the patio and have a sandwich or a salad that's prepared there, like restaurant style. But most of the food is going to be, aside from your essentials, bottled water and cat food and bags of chips. We're going to be producing food from both locations to be sold at the market as well. So you can get a pint of my collard greens at the market. And additionally, we're doing a program that we're actually true breaking news. We're starting next week. We're going to start doing Market Mondays, where we have trays of food that are either par cooked or raw, with instructions on how to do them at home so that you can have restaurant quality food that you make yourself. So the idea is it's kind of a fun way to make dinner for your family without having to go to the grocery store and let me do all the chopping and cutting and pre-cooking for you. So, and those products
nice.
As well.
That's so fun. I was hoping somebody was going to do a meal to go situation like that. I think that would be really, it's going to be really we're going to see a lot more of it because everybody's really looking for stuff like that. I am so sorry. This cat of mine is annoying, like so annoying. I do not understand.
So unprofessional, Roby. So unprofessional.
I mean, seriously.
It's a good thing you're not getting paid for this because it's very unprofessional.
Yeah. Or so you say. I actually sent that invoice in yesterday. Okay.
Ultimately, my hope is once the market opens, because we live in the digital age and everybody Google stuff for online, my hope is to record YouTube videos. So it is like a cooking class where you can, okay, if you got the lamb, fast forward to 2:22 on your phone and I can talk you through it. And it's kind of a fun way to learn new things as well as have dinner at home. So
that's awesome. I would love that. Yeah, a little YouTube video on how to make a bolognese. I know, but like maybe people don't know how to make a pasta sauce, right? And that is a quick pasta sauce.
Unscrew,
you don't.
Unscrew jar, pour over pasta.
You got it. A+.
Warm.
Yes.
Warm if needed.
No, always warm. Ugh. Cold pasta sauce sounds terrible, especially if it's tomato. But
Ragu over there.
yeah, Boyardee.
That's me.
Oh God, what a mess. All right, so where are you getting takeout right now if you're not eating your food?
Oh God, I take out way more than I should. People always ask like, oh, what do you cook when you're not here? What do you make when you're not here? And honestly, usually I just make a phone call because I get tired of cooking here. And I try to hit as many spots as I can, but I definitely have like my little local favorites. Faluca opened recently in Carytown. The owner there, we've talked about this, Roby. The owner there is an absolute prince, and their pho is out of this world. I also am a sucker for full key. They have this fatty duck that my girlfriend and I, Elizabeth, we go there like once a week for this fatty duck. It is out of control good with little leek flowers. I'm a sucker for really any kind of like Asian cuisine. That's like definitely a go-to for me. I think because my style here is so classic American or modern American, I always crave something that I don't produce on the regular. Lemon for Indian food, ooh, is so good.
Yeah, that used to be a club too. I kind of miss it.
What?
You used to be able to get, on the other side. You used
No
to be able to
way.
get, like, when you walk into Lemon, you go to the left if you were dining in, and then there was a door to the right there. You know what I'm talking about when you walk into Lemon? Yeah, that's where the club was, to the right.
Wow, missed opportunity.
No, we're gonna get it back. Then we're gonna be clubbing at the Lemon for sure.
Out and dancing and being I know everybody feels that way, but it's just, I miss it.
Dude, I like the exercise. I want to go dance to loud music and feel like I've burned 10 million calories and then eat onion rings dipped in sour cream at 1 a.m.
Yeah. Oh, those were the days.
Yes, I wouldn't be able to do that now anyway, but I say that I would. That's what I'd like to be able to do. A Philly cheesesteak, a late night Philly cheesesteak. Where are those now? I don't know. So this is a tough question. Mm-hmm. I'm going to ask you about the restaurant industry and how hard do you think we are going to be hit? Like, what do you think we can expect, being that you're inside it and you know what's going on? Do you feel like we're going to see a ton more closings before?
All right, you're going to make me take my optimist hat off for a second.
I am, but I'm hoping that you'll spin it positively, which is what
I do think there's going to be more closures. There's no secret. I mean, most weeks we aren't making money and we're booked almost every night. With restrictions where they're at half capacity, with limited takeout and delivery, most of the restaurants in town are just losing money really slowly. And if you're doing well, you're losing money slowly. If you're not, then you're losing money really quickly. I mean, I've spoken with a lot of chefs and restaurateurs who have gotten pardons from landlords for breaks in rent, who have extended their due dates on bills from purveyors, and it's. Some folks are just lucky to have people in their circle that allow them to do that, and then some are not. And the places that are not are going to continue closing because there's no structure. I mean, with PPP coming back around again, it's going to help extend things for a bit and allow us to continue with our employees. But these places are running bare bones, and we hate to see a lot of our staff that are furloughed and making no money, but we don't have any to hold on. I mean, currently right now at the stables, it's me and my sous chef run everything. We do the takeout, we do the delivery, we do the dine-in. There's no other chefs on right now because we can't afford it. And we understand that. And we can't necessarily produce some of the more complicated things that we once did, which is a bummer. But, you know, we're doing what we have to stay open. Back to your question, yes, I do think there's going to be more closures. And if one more person in Richmond says, well, think of all the new places that are going to open, I'm going to smack somebody across the face, because for us to be working so hard and for people to not understand that it's going to majorly change the food culture in Richmond. And my biggest fear for such a charming restaurant city, and honestly, the restaurant scene here is what brought me to Richmond largely, aside from having my family around, is that a lot of these charming institutions that have closed over the course of the pandemic are going to get snatched up by chain restaurants. And the last thing that I want for such a burgeoning restaurant culture is for it to be changed in such a major way because of this. There's an end in sight, and I think that we'll put the positivity hat back on. It's my understanding from what we've heard through the local news, and I have some regulars who are affiliates of the CDC. We're looking at end of January, beginning of February for vaccines to start coming to restaurant workers. And I can't speak for everybody, but I could not be more excited just to get the ball rolling, to make sure that we're continuing to be as safe as we can so that we can keep doing what we're doing. And my hope is that in conjunction with these vaccine rollouts, we can start seeing some lifting of restrictions, at least to the degree that, you know, we are able to serve more people in a more safe and reasonable fashion.
Well, I love our restaurant city, obviously, and I don't want any new places to open. I want you guys all to stay open.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, if I'm ordering something from the stables to go, because I'm not eating in right now, and it's not 42 orders of lamb chopped, and it's not the fatty duck, what am I ordering?
Ooh. Girl, anything. Or everything.
You're listening to Eat It Virginia with Evan Campbell, Scott Wise, and Roby.